Hey, what is going on, guys? It is Young here, and today I'm back in another Fortnite video, and in today's video, I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks on how to not choke as many games in Fortnite, and just how to clutch up more games in the end game, and just overall win a ton more games here in Season 9. And before we get into the video, I have a weekly V-Buck giveaway. I'm going to be giving away V-Bucks every single Friday, and if you guys want a chance to win some free V-Bucks, all you guys need to do is to drop a like on this video, make sure you guys subscribe to my channel, and as well subscribe to my second channel. I post a ton of really good content on there, so make sure you guys do subscribe, turn on my post notifications, and as well leave a comment down below of your Xbox gamer tag, your PSN gamer tag, or Epic account. And if you guys would like to support me as a creator in the item shop, all you have to do is go over to the item shop, go into the bottom right hand corner, support a creator, and type in my code. My code is YoungHumor. Type it in and you guys will have me supported as a creator. And alright guys, let's get right to the video. Alright, so in this video I have two gameplays, and I did win both of them. And in this video I wanted to be talking about how to not lose as many games, because I've seen a ton of common mistakes of people just losing game after game, and they really do everything right the entirety of the game, but maybe towards the mid or the end of the game they mess up, they make these same mistakes over and over again, and it's costing them games. It's just super annoying to deal with. So I want to be talking about some mistakes that I see people make that I think you guys can really benefit from, and just make better decisions and win a lot more games, the games that you should be winning, because a lot of times there are mistakes that really are preventable, and they're not that hard to change. You just have to make a conscious effort to change it, and you can play a lot better and win a lot more games doing so. So the first thing that I wanted to be touching on in this video, and this is a mistake that I a lot see in arena games, but I also see it in quite a bit of pubs. And really this mistake is after you get a kill, maybe you're close to the zone, maybe the zone's coming in, and maybe not taking that extra bit of storm damage to get the extra materials, extra ammo, extra loot that you probably would have needed. And for me, this was a mistake that I was making game after game that was costing me, especially when I played arena a lot. I used to play a little bit of it. Now I'm starting to play a lot more public matches because I am enjoying that they brought back the pump. So this is the weapon that I've been using a ton. But when I was playing arena mode, that's just something that I noticed. It would be towards the end of the game, one of the final circles, and I'd be fortunate enough to get one of the kills. And instead of going for the loot, instead of going into the storm, because I know it took 10 damage, and even though it took 10 damage, I was still getting HP per kill. And even if I would have went into the storm to grab the mats and then came out, I still would have been at least 65, 70 HP, not including my shield, which really isn't that bad. You don't always need to have 100 HP, 100 shield at all times. You can still live pretty good with 125, 140, anything like that. You can still do very, very well. And even if you don't have that much shield in those later parts of the game, it really doesn't matter too much, because unless it's like a 1v1 you're fighting the last guy, because most of the time people are going to be focused on other players, so it's not going to make that huge of a difference. So going into the storm, because most of the time it was not me dying from having a lack of HP, most of the time, more than likely, it was just me dying from the lack of having materials. I would run out of materials, and then you guys already know if you're in the end game and you have no materials, that's just a pretty much GG at that point. There's no way you're going to win that. And so it doesn't even have to apply to arena mode. It can happen a ton in public matches. Maybe the storm's coming in, and maybe you're really afraid of losing a little bit of HP, but if you got their mats or materials, it would have served you a lot better. So personally, that was a mistake that I was doing a ton, and I've also seen a lot of people do it as well. They end up not going for the loot, and it costs them, because maybe you could have picked up some extra shield from the other player, extra materials, everything like that. So you end up losing more from the loss of materials and HP, rather than just losing a little bit of extra health from going inside of the storm. So I would say in the majority of cases, it's end up worth going for the extra the extra minis you might find, the extra materials, than losing only 20 or maybe 30 HP to the storm. And so going on to the next thing that I wanted to be talking about, and a way I see people make a lot of mistakes too, is not having enough materials. And this is something that I see a lot as the game goes on, and for the main reason is, even if you farm up a lot of materials at the beginning, one thing that I've seen a ton time after time again is you're going to be running into players in games that don't have any mats. So you're going to be fighting off players, and sometimes those players are going to have max materials, and usually those are the teams that you find towards the end that end up going to Lonely Lodge. They end up going to somewhere where nobody lands, farmless max materials, and then ends up dying to you very easily, because they just really play super slow, gain up all the materials that they can but it's something that happened to me time after time again. I would be going into the middle of the game, and I usually farm up a pretty good amount of mats in the beginning of the game. And as you can see right now in the gameplay I'm in right here, I have about 600 wood, 200 brick, another 150 steel. So right now I'm in pretty good shape, and even though I'm in pretty good shape now, doesn't mean I'm always going to be. So I'm in pretty good shape when it comes to materials, but I'm going into the mid game, and a lot of people don't like to farm up earlier, so I could be running through 3 or 4 players and maybe only gaining 200 materials total. So that's just something you guys really have to keep in mind, and the best way to go about this, the best tip I can give you guys, is when it comes to when you want to go rush other players, once you want to go into a gunfight. Of course, if you get shot from a direction you're not ready for it, then sometimes you're going to have to challenge that gunfight right away. But the majority of times you're going to have a effort if you want to go challenge other players, or maybe you want to play a little bit slower and get materials. I would say the best way to go about it is you want to always try to have an idea of how many materials you guys are going to need, and some of you guys might be using a lot more materials than me. Maybe per gunfight you guys use about 500. For me, I could probably get away with about 350 at the most, because you never know what the type of player you're running into. If you ever run into a sweaty player, I think 350 is good enough for me personally. But I know for a lot of players it could be a lot more and sometimes a lot less, and usually the players that need a lot less are going to be the players that are more aggressive, because if you play a little bit slower, you like to build a little bit more, maybe hold off the other player with turbo builds, stuff like that, you're going to need a little bit more materials than the player like me, who likes to just rush everyone and W key every single player that I can possibly go into. So materials aren't as important to me. I still need a good amount of materials, and for me ideally I would say a really comfortable amount is about 500 or 600. But if I'm going into a gunfight, if I have about 300, I can usually do with that, and I can win the gunfight pretty easily. It's just that extra couple hundred materials is a good buffer just in case I run into a really sweaty player, and I feel like that's a downfall if I don't have enough materials going into that gunfight. So always making sure you have enough materials throughout the game is something that I think a lot of people are really not taking into consideration. I feel like it's a really underrated tip that not a lot of people are really trying to talk about again, because that's a really common mistake I've seen a lot of players make. They end up running out of materials when it could easily been prevented if they just saved up a little bit more materials throughout the middle of the game. Just because it's going to happen more time than not, you're going to be going into a gunfight throughout the middle of the game where you run into 3 or 4 people that don't drop barely any materials. So that's just something you always want to keep in mind, and just have a decent amount. It doesn't have to be that much, but you always want to try to keep above a certain amount of materials every time you're going into a gunfight throughout the game. And one thing that I do the most towards the end of the game, and it might sound kind of weird for a lot of you guys, but when it comes to the later parts of the game, that's when I play the most aggressive throughout the entire game. When it comes to the early game, mid game, late game, I say the late game, and when it comes to clutching up at the very end, for me personally, when I'm playing public matches, the faster that I play, the more aggressive that I play towards the end, the better I end up being. Just for the main reason, and it's pretty obvious when it comes to me, because a lot of players at the very end of the game are going to be a lot more stacked. You're going to be having going against a ton of players. They're going to have max materials, very good weapons, and different things like that. So if you play in a little bit slower playstyle, I guess it could work if you guys don't like to fight a lot of players. You just like to play strictly for the win. Then I get you might not want to challenge anybody, but for me the best way and the best playstyle and the most success that I've had is playing very aggressive, and just for the main reason being, if they have a lot of materials and a lot of extra shields and different things like that, which most players typically usually have towards the end of the game, it only makes sense to go for a little bit more aggressive of a play, because otherwise they're just going to be constantly healing up with their shields, building, and just holding turbo build, because they don't have to move at all because their materials are so stacked. They literally can just sit in their box for a good solid 3 minutes. I've seen this happen so many times. Maybe it's a guy on top of a hill, maybe it's a guy who's just sitting in a box in a 1x1 4 stories up. They're not going to be challenging, and most players who play this game are going to be playing very slow, so it's going to be a really long and drug out gunfight if you don't go for any type of challenges, any sort of pushes like that. So it's just better off going for the more aggressive pushes. It works out the best. The only thing you have to keep in mind if you are going for a W key, if someone likes to place traps, but they're usually really easy to destroy if they just place wood structures, because all you have to do is shoot the wood like 2 or 3 times and it immediately breaks. So that really isn't that big of a deal. And for me, when I don't play very aggressive towards the end of the game, what ends up happening is I'd be in a really long gunfight, and by the time the gunfight's over, I'm going to be going through all of my minis, pretty much all my remaining shields, It's just one of those bad things because the next gunfight I go into, I don't have any extra shield going into the fight. So if the other player hits me for 100 damage, 120, 130 damage, I'm not going to have any extra shield to recover. So it only makes sense to play a little bit more aggressive for me. And of course, it all is personal preference on your playstyle. But for me personally, I'm more of an aggressive player, like going for kills. And I think the end of the game when I play a little bit more aggressive, it just works out a ton better because I can go through players a lot faster, have more materials, and more shield after that gunfight. And with that being said, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys liked it. And if you guys could drop a like in this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, turn on my notifications so you're notified for every single new video. And alright guys, I'll see you next video.